If you enjoy watching Common Ground online, please consider making a tax-deductible donation at lptv.org. Lakeland Public Television presents Common Ground, brought to you by the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund and the citizens of Minnesota. Welcome to Common Ground. I'm your host, Scott Knudsen. In this episode, Maxwell Kelsey of Bemidji creates authentic replicas of fur trade era Ojibwe lacrosse sticks.
My name's Maxwell Kelsey. I'm a woodworker at heart. I love wood, keeping tools sharp, keeping your shop clean. Being a woodworker. Wood calls to me, okay? The grain of the wood. I'm a grain reader. I read the root. I read the bark. So it was only natural for me to go to art school. And I spent my time in the wood shop. I majored in furniture design. I got a BFA, Bachelor of Fine Arts, in furniture design. I was in the cities for a long time, driving in the craziness, and I needed to get back to my roots. That was a serious thing for me. So coming back to Bemidji here, digging root, working with the inner bark of the basswood tree. The best root I've found is from the sand. Big trees. The swamp root, the outer gum, is harder to get off, I think, from the swamp root. The sand gum seems to come off easier when it's straight out of the ground. And now I have the opportunity to create several sets, traditional Great Lakes Ojibwe lacrosse sticks. In my junior year of high school, Dan Ninham, who was also my health teacher, he started lacrosse, and it sounded unique. A part of why I'm doing this project is because I do things that people don't technically do on a day-to-day basis. I love doing not the norm. And so that's why I've picked up on this, and it's been a long history for me too. So as an artist, going back into your past and looking at the things that really attracted you and playing around with them in your head, going, should I do this? Or, oh, I could do it. Well, here we are. I am given this opportunity. I'm creating a full set, 30 lacrosse sticks, 12 on 12 play, so it's 24. And I know that they're gonna get broken, so I'm gonna do 30. And now, since I've, come back to Bemidji, gained more knowledge in my craft of working with materials, combining them to create something that has historical significance, which is really important for me to reproduce. The shear factor on this wheat goop is incredible. Where, this is the vertical grains of the bark. I took the bark off when it was green in the spring. I soaked it in the water for a week, brought it up onto a flat surface and pounded the entire length of it, and then removed the inner bark, this fibrous material, in layers. And now it's not strong this way at all, but the vertical, it's incredible. It could still break just in its raw form like this. So when you twist it, and it's a counter twist, it becomes very strong. I believe if you got to the deer quick enough, you could snare a deer with wheat goop. A long time ago, I went to the White Oak Society and I read up on my voyageurs and saw the canoe maker, Bill Hafman's great son-in-law, Ray Bozell, and building canoes and playing lacrosse over there, making my own lacrosse sticks while I was there, and watching Ray Bozell build birch bark canoes, having an appreciation for Beltrami County, and our local history had serious impact on my personal reflection in surviving in the wilderness and hunter-gatherer lifestyle, which I believe is so important. We've gotten so far from that, where we drink in water bottles. We don't know where the water comes from. I'd much rather drink out of a spring, a creek, than I know where my water come from. Same with meat. So weegoop, inner bark of the basswood tree, WIIGOB. This was, 100-foot piece of this is very valuable in a non-electrical age, hand work. I think as a society, we've gotten so far removed from our natural element. So keeping these old techniques alive is so important, especially geographically for me, living in Bemidji. Doing these things is really important for me. So going to the rendezvous, playing lacrosse there, seeing the sticks from people who really knew what they were doing and making them, and then making my own and learning the history, and having Dan Ninham part of my life in middle school and joining his lacrosse program in 96, 97, 98. We played with traditional sticks that I believe he had Menominee man make, and I have one of those sticks for reference here. What's so important for me is building a stick. I'm a maker, I make stuff. I'm gonna suck up all the information from my geography that I live in to explore my art with. It's only natural working with natural materials because I know where they come from. They come from the forest. So I don't know. I respect that hunter-gatherer mentality so much. The way of living, on the edge, in the woods, the balance of life, living harmoniously, dealing with the seasons. You can store this for 50 years. Pick it up and twist it. Actually, this stuff right here is 10 years old. That's what's incredible about this. Same with the watap, the spruce root. You wrap it up and let it dry. 50 years will go by and you can, maybe even 100, take it down if it was a cool, dry place. By soaking it and heating it, you can reuse that material. I have respect, I'm always wanting to gain knowledge. And so for me, doing these things, it's respect. And so for me, it's exploration of learning, which is so important for me because I just want to continue to grow and grow and grow. It's obvious for me to want to pick up on my natural surroundings in Beltrami County and learn the lessons and the stories of the forest. Something that really interests me is I have friends who are reenactors, and they are very strict in their reenacting, where they only create things that were historical objects that were documented, which is very important. So recreating documented objects historically is very important for me. That's specifically what has gotten me on this project with the lacrosse sticks. Is Constantine Beltrami in 1824 to 1835 traveled in this area. He brought back a lacrosse stick back to Italy, which is now in Bergamo, and that is the oldest surviving lacrosse stick historically. I'm very excited about recreating this object and having whites and natives and blacks and Hispanics and everyone, youth, play using a historical stick, which is very important, I think, an ancient game. This is the hard work. Now we'll split and we'll bend. So we're going to split this ash. Now this log right here is 2 years old, I believe. And so I'm gonna quarter this. I'll find the crack, kind of a natural crack on it. I believe this is going top down, which you want to go top down. But you could go the other way too. I don't think it matters. I've done it all. You know, you don't know until you do it. And you don't know until you do it wrong about 20 times. So that's what is really important, is doing it and doing it over again, and hopefully not making the same mistakes, like hitting yourself in the leg with a mallet. So we'll continue this here. Almost there. There we go.
What are you looking for in that wood?
In this wood, I'm looking for the straightest grain possible. You know, you need to let the material speak for itself. So you'll know when it's good, and straight grain's good. So, pretty twisted. This wood's tough. Ash is tough, that's why we're using it. There we go. Okay, look at this grain here. When I say I'm a grain reader, this, yeah, it gets chunky because it bends, and there was a branch here. So it affects the grain internally, but you know, from here down, it gets real nice. So we're looking for approximately 52 inches. You want green ash. You want as green as wood if you're going to bend a 4-inch diameter circle, a basket. So the greener the wood, the better. The more humidity in the material, the easier it bends. You're going to steam box the wood. On a molecular scale, the steam box will infiltrate the grain and heat up the sapwood. So that will allow the grains to slide on itself, you know, instead of the shear factor, no sliding, just shearing. So we'll be able to create that radius up to probably 1 inch. Okay, let's stand it up here. You know, you can bend it like a ribbon. So that's what draws me to this material, is the capabilities of it. Ash, cedar, birch, oak, you can steam anything. This will become a lacrosse stick. This is a sizable material here, so I can make the handle quite long, so possibly a defender stick. So we're breaking down this material here. I'm looking for the heartwood. I'm looking for the inside of the wood. The exterior wood will bend fine too. That's saturated with humidity, but for the real strong, consistent wood, I'm looking for the sapwood. The bark would obviously be here, and this is just a new wood, whereas this is the heartwood, the darker, the true sap grain. The nicer bend that you get, you'll achieve from splitting the wood, because it splits down the natural length of the grain, or searching out that grain if you're going to cut it on a saw. The wood's going to tell you what it wants and what it doesn't. If it wants to become the object, it will. It's all about reading the grain. So let me just work through this, and then we're going to start whittling it down and turn on that steam box, and I'll get this whittled out, boys. I'm just seeing where we're at here. Lengthwise, I'm looking for roughly 51 inches, which will end up 36 inches, which is typical for my size anyways to scoop the ball. So I'm looking for a height relative to the relationship of my hand to the earth. I'm making the ends fatter so it's easier to split, because I'm searching for that interior sap grain. This is more manageable size material to work with. So it would help if I used the back of this. something that I was looking at here is I made a master pattern. When you make a pattern, you think, this will be easy. Yeah, I'll just whip this pattern out. Well, you know, there's 4 steps usually to making the pattern. You remake, just like the canoe, you remake to go through the learning process. You constantly are remaking things and refining. So my point is I refined this pattern about 4 times. I finally got to the pattern that I felt suitable. So when I'm looking at the material that we've split out of the wood, it looks like a split piece of wood. But when I hold this up to it, the natural splitting characteristics of this lends itself to the design of the lacrosse stick, which tells me that historically how the material split and how the game was played happened very naturally. Well, I'm going to line this up, so we will be bending this part. I will be removing this material down and then, you know, squaring this up. So you have to envision it to really bring the life out of it. So finding that soul in the wood, you know, will shine in the end. So especially with bending, because trust me, I've broke 10 sticks in a row before I finally made a healthy bend. So I'm going to make some marks here, and then we will be draw knifing this down. I think I'll start draw knifing this now. So I made this contraption. It's a shaving horse, colonial tool. I made this contraption to fit in the back of my vehicle. And I'm reading grain, but this grain's good. So I have to be careful to not get too thin on the end. And we're creating the spot in which the bend will come back around for the hoop of the stick. So I'm using this shaving horse to just break down the material, refine the shape. And I don't want to get hasty, so I could ruin this piece. If I get ahead of myself and am too confident with my knife, I'll make this length too short, and then I won't be able to complete the loop. You have to read the grain. You can take away too much. You know, when you're splitting naturally, look at, I got a little thin here, so it'll still work, but you got to be real careful of how much you take and how much you don't. This actually is probably going to be a good right-hander. It's got a little right-hand swoop to it. I'm refining the intersection of where the bend will come around and meet the handle here. I think this one's ready to go. So this is my steam box operation. Pretty basic here. Cinder blocks, keep it off the grass. I got a hot plate. I'm heating Grandma's cooking pot. I put a faucet in here with a 2-stepper. And so I got 2 hoses that are feeding boiling water into this box. I'm looking for a temperature of 212 degrees. You know, 45 minutes, an hour for this to really heat up. And so I'll be able to tell when this is hot by feeling up here. These need to steam for about 45 minutes, so you can see that. Don't want to lose too much heat. These will actually be suspended in here on wires. I've got wires, so it can be 360 here, steam penetration. So I'm thinking about 40 minutes or less. So these have been in here for about a half hour and are fully saturated. So we're bringing them in over here to our mold here. And you know, I only have about 2 minutes to work with them. So this one I can tell that I need to refine a little bit more on the end. So on the fly here, get this transition a little bit more even so there's not a hump in the bend when it gets down there. I always give myself excess, so I know I have excess. So I need to keep the band on the back supportive. That's what helps it from not splitting out. Awesome job, awesome. Beautiful, look at that. Look at that.
How does it feel when something just goes together perfect like that?
It's awesome. So this is the stick now in the mold, and it's been drying for 24 hours. So we're about to take it out and see what it looks like here. It will get a little bit bigger, but I'll be able to tighten up the radius. I'm looking for a 4-inch diameter. I need to get a clamp. We're gonna set it at the 4-inch diameter, clamp it. I'll make a measurement to cut and a measurement to create a notch. And you'll see when I create the notch that the lashing, the WATAP lashing, will seat against this single strong back, tying this tension in. So I need to drill the holes in this here, make a couple measurements, and then we're gonna affix the net onto it. Take my chisel, and now I'm going to cut the notch where this will seat. I want the shoulder here. We're gonna move material on this side. Now see what we've done there? I want to make sure that I reinforce this back part of the stick. So I'm gonna make sure that I don't trim this too short, because when the wood travels around the circle, it actually acts as a reinforcer if I can put part of the netting through those two pieces. I'll mark where I think that's appropriate. Just gonna get a double check here, okay. And use this for reference here, so I'm gonna cut this right about there. I can probably use this crooked knife. This is the right way to do it. You know, and you're not gonna do it right the first time, and that's with anything. Well, we're ready to drill a hole, and then we'll lay out our hole pattern, and we'll get a net on there. I'm gonna try and chamfer the edge of this hole so when that root comes through, it doesn't lay on a sharp edge and shear off. I'll bend this back up and it will seat against the lashing that will be right here. So this root has been soaking for a while, and I harvested it this morning actually. That's why it split so nice and the gum removed off of it so nicely. I have two choice pieces here. Now it becomes the basket here. Okay, so I'm gonna stick it in there to start. Then I'll push it through. I'll get it around a couple times, get it even here and see what I'm dealing with, and then I'll really crank down on it. Just want to get it in there and make sure that the seat is seated. And I'm gonna go around 3 times, and then I'm gonna do 2 half hitches. And you know what? Since I have all this nice material, we're gonna do 3, maybe 4 on this one here. I'm gonna trim it here. When it dries, it'll tighten up. I'm gonna transfer my holes from my master stick here. I always have a sharp pencil. We're going to create the basket out of the wee goop I twisted up earlier. I am beveling the edges of the holes that I just drilled, so my cordage will be supported on its edge. I'm using very traditional materials. Long time ago, they used these materials in their lacrosse sticks. Nowadays, it's a lot newer materials. So I'm happy with the basket depth, and I'm going to knot off the end of this, and then I'm going to trim the rest here.
Thanks for watching. Join us again on Common Ground. If you have an idea for a Common Ground piece that pertains to North Central Minnesota, email us at legacy@lptv.org or call us at 218-333-3014. To view any episode of Common Ground online, visit us at lptv.org. To order episodes or segments of Common Ground, call 218-333-3020. Common Ground is brought to you by the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund with money from the vote of the people November 4th, 2008. If you enjoyed this episode of Lakeland Public Television's Common Ground, consider making a contribution at lptv.org.